Hi, it's Megan. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a few recipes of things that we had for dinner over the last couple of weeks. Right now, the first recipe where I'm going to be sharing with you is a chicken stir fry. You can see right here that I am cutting up some chicken. I used chicken thighs this time. It was about 2 pounds. And in here I am mixing up the sauce that goes with it. It's basically chicken broth, some spices, cornstarch, some soy sauce. I'll have the full recipe linked down in the description box if you are interested. So I'm just whisking up that sauce to add once I have everything all cooked. So you can see I also have some prepped veggies, and I basically just sauteed and cooked the chicken. Then I added the veggies as the chicken was finishing cooking, and then I added the sauce to thicken up, and I'm just serving that over some rice. This is one of my family's favorites, and we actually haven't made it in quite a while, so it was a really good one. Okay, next we are making chili. You can see that Lucy is helping me. Again, I'll have this recipe down in the description box below, but we are adding 2 cans of petite diced tomatoes. The ones I was using was with jalapenos. You can also use the ones with chilies, or if you don't want it as spicy, you can just leave those out. I also added 2 cans of beans. One was dark red, one was light red, kidney beans. And then I added 3 8-ounce cans of tomato sauce, a little bit of garlic, some onion, some dried onion. I didn't have a fresh onion, otherwise I would have added that. And then I'm also adding chili powder and cumin, as well as a little bit of monk fruit sweetener. You can also use sugar if you want to, and also some cocoa powder as well. And we basically just put all of that in the crock pot and cooked it on low for about 8 hours. And then it was time for dinner, and we just heated it up, or we just spooned it out into bowls and served it with some cheese, sour cream, and some little tortilla strips on top. I forgot to get a finished look at the recipe for you guys, but I also added some ground turkey. You can also use ground beef if you want to. And then, yeah, we just set it on low, cooked it all day, and it was great. So here's what you're going to need to make this sweet potato sausage hash. You're going to need sweet potatoes. I'm using 3 for my family tonight, but this recipe is super easy to make a ton of or make less of. You can just kind of alter how much of each ingredient you're using. I'm also using a big link of smoked sausage. Today I'm using frozen hash browns, but you can also use just regular potatoes. And that probably would be a little bit more cost effective. Same with the onions. You will want 1 onion for your hash, but I don't currently have any, so I'm just using some frozen onions that I have in my fridge. And then you'll also need some peppers. Usually I just use bell peppers, but I just happen to have these sweet mini peppers that are going a little bit soft. So we're going to chop up quite a few of those and add those into our hash as well. Okay, here I am just chopping up the sweet potatoes for the hash. Like I said, I'm using 3. And what I really like about this idea is that you can just scale it to however many people you are feeding. So I used 3 sweet potatoes. My youngest Isla there is helping me by handing me the potatoes and drinking her smoothie that she was having for lunch. I drizzled some oil just on the sweet potatoes so that they would get a little bit crispy as I roasted them in the oven. And then I'm just transferring them to a rimmed cookie sheet with some parchment paper, just so that cleanup would be a little bit easier. My pan was a little bit crowded, and so they didn't get quite as crispy as I wanted to, but they definitely cooked up just fine. And then I added some seasoning salt to them. I have the sweet potatoes roasting in the oven. And then up in a skillet, I have the frozen potatoes, some bell peppers and onions. And then over here, I have chopped up my sausage. I cut it into discs and then into quarters, just so it's easier for my kids to eat. Once the potatoes and onions and peppers have cooked a little bit better and aren't frozen and are starting to get a little bit crispy, I'll add the sausage just to heat through. And then once the sweet potatoes are done, I'll also add that, and we'll just kind of put it all in the skillet together. Also make sure that I've seasoned the sweet potatoes. I'm going to add my seasoning salt to this skillet right now. So this is another one of my family's very favorites. We've been having this very regularly. It's super healthy, lots of whole ingredients, and it's really, really good. So what you need for this recipe is about 6 to 8 potatoes. These ones are a little bit small, so it'll just make a smaller batch of soup. But everything in this recipe is super, super adaptable and adjustable to make kind of however much you want. So about 6 to 8 potatoes, an onion, garlic, and then about 4 to 6 cups of chicken broth, depending on how soupy you like it or how big of a batch that you're making. This is just my homemade chicken stock, chicken broth from rotisserie chicken carcasses, but you can also use bouillon, is what I've also used a lot in the past, or the canned kind or the boxed kind, whatever you like. So you'll need those things at the beginning, and then at the end you're going to add in some milk or half and half. I just happen to have half and half on hand today, so that's what I'm going to be using. So here I am peeling, and I'm going to be dicing the potatoes. There's little Isla in the background. She's always under my feet as I'm trying to cook. We do have child locks on our cabinets, but she is back there. You can still, they're like the latch kind, and so you can still open them a little bit of the way. And so she recently discovered that she can open up the cabinet doors partially. And so she was opening up that door to see what exactly was inside. So I'm just peeling the potatoes. Like I said, you need about 6 to 8 of them. It just depends on how big of a soup you want to make. It's really nice because this recipe is super, super adaptable, and you can make a large quantity or a small quantity, just depending on however much you want. If you are adapting this, basically all you need is however many potatoes that you want, and then you want your chicken broth to be enough to, oh, there goes Isla. She knocked over the tripod because she was trying to help. As you can see, her cute little hand trying to grab the potatoes. So like I was saying, if you're trying to adapt this, you can use however many potatoes that you want, and then you just want to make sure that your chicken broth is enough to cover the potatoes as they're cooking. And then at the end, when you're mixing it all up and you're adding the milk and stuff, you can just kind of add as much milk as you want to make it as creamy as you want. It's a super, super adaptable, super creamy, super easy recipe. And then I'm also adding an onion as well. I really like the onion flavor, so I always tend to add a little bit more onion. If you don't love the onion flavor, you can, or if you don't love like onion chunks, you can use onion powder if you want, or dehydrated onion. I use that sometimes if I don't have a fresh onion on hand. And we're going to be blending, like using an immersion blender for the soup at the end. So it doesn't really matter how chunky your things are, because we're going to make it all smooth at the end. Here I'm adding some garlic. And then if you want it to be a little bit chunkier, so I'm going to put it on low for 8 hours. You can cook it for longer too. It's just so that the potatoes get soft. So here I am with my immersion blender, and this is how we're going to make it nice and smooth. If you don't have an immersion blender, I didn't have one for years while I made this soup, and I just used a potato masher to kind of mash it up. It doesn't get quite as like thick and creamy and velvety as if you use an immersion blender, but if you like a chunkier potato soup, you can just use a potato masher, or I've also used a meat masher sometimes to kind of chunk up the potatoes instead of making it smooth. And then you can add about a cup of milk. Start with about a cup of milk or half and half for cream or whatever kind of dairy product you have. You can also use non-dairy milk as well, and just kind of mix that in until it gets to be the consistency that you like. This soup will thicken a lot as it sits, and so especially as it sits in the fridge, it will thicken up. So you can add some milk to kind of thin that out as you're reheating it later. You can also add a few cups of shredded cheese in it if you want to, or you can top it with cheese. We usually do both. I had a little bit of cheese. I just used whatever remnants I had left in my fridge for this. And then when we serve it up, I also like to top it with some cheese as well. So after all that's mixed in, you can just put it on warm or low for about another 30 minutes or so. And then you can dish it up however you would like. All of my family loves this. We just put a little bit more cheese on top and some sour cream. If you have bacon bits, that's really good. Or if you have green onions, we really like putting that on top of this soup as well. So that's all I have for this week. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.